Welcome to Southeast Sandy Green Street. My name is Adam Zucker. I'm the owner of Zucker Engineering. And yeah, this is the Sandy Green Street. It's phase one. And there's four elements to this project. If you took the diversion up Ash Street, there's another triangle planting right up there. There's the median trees that we put in. And then catty corner, there's another facility similar size, but this is the largest facility. So you might have seen me co-present this back in 2015. And I've been working on this project, I guess, since 2007. But there's a lot of unique features that are incorporated here, as you can see, from the pavers and the steel, the valley gutter. But what I really wanted to talk about before I get into kind of the nerdy details of the stormwater is how this project came to being. So this did not follow the normal CIP process. At least I don't think it did. So kind of going back, maybe just kind of so I used to live 5 blocks from here, and I would walk my dog and kids, and you need to envision that this was all asphalt. And the reason it was asphalt was this part of Sandy Boulevard never came through the grid when the city was formed. It was actually, I think, back when they put the new Burnside Bridge in, Sandy was extended to Burnside, and then the folks of East Portland, Portland and East Portland were 2 different cities at the time, and the folks in East Portland wanted to get more people to come into their downtown, and so they then extended after the Burnside Bridge was put in 1926. In 1928, the business interests kind of bought up the properties around this alignment of Sandy and improved a local improvement district and extended Sandy to where we know it today. And as a result, there's kind of some legacies of just really unutilized right-of-way and excess asphalt. And it just kind of made sense. I think actually Tom Lipton of the city actually had a design of they should do something here because it's just wasted space. They could put parking in or whatever, or stormwater swales. So fast forward to 2007, and the city was right in the throes of putting in the East Side Big Pipe. And as part of that work, there was a grant that was available to businesses and organizations and individuals that were affected by the Big Pipe work, which is kind of a crazy loophole to have a grant be available to an individual. So I thought, well, hey, why not? So I kind of went around to the different businesses and the neighborhood associations and kind of sketched up an idea of like what you could do with this intersection. It actually starts up there, and actually phase 2, which is happening, we'll talk a little bit more, is actually at the end of Sandy where it intersects 7th. But for this, we just had more than enough to handle with these 3 sites. So got everybody's approval, or everyone on board. I went to the business district and I told them, if we put stormwater planners in here, you'll actually create new parking spaces. And they were like, great, we're on board. Usually 2 elements that don't come together is adding parking and building stormwater facilities. So submitted all the material, and kind of after a really long time, about a year, the grant awarded this project $100,000 to me to do this project. And I'm like, I don't want the money. So then there's kind of this awkward moment of a couple years where I was trying to figure out what to do and how to implement this project. Obviously, I knew this project was more than a $100,000 project. And so I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I was kind of bugging people at the city and looking at other organizations that might be able to champion it. But I don't know, maybe I got a call from Henry or somebody and said that we found some money to do this. I think they were just done with me being annoying and just kind of pestering them about this project. So through that, what is really interesting is that Henry's group and Adrian's group is part of the Sustainable Stormwater Group, or I guess it used to be called that, and they weren't part of how they traditionally. But it wasn't a traditional path for the city implementing projects. So I think that was a really key factor that came into why we were able to maybe push the envelope we did with some of the design elements here. I think also the fact that this was a community project also kind of gave Henry some cover and leeway to say, this is a community project, this is what the community wants. So that's, kind of a real interesting piece that I think was one of the reasons why we were able to kind of do these unique features.
Could I say something about
Sure.
it too? So this Sustainable Stormwater Group that he's talking about, part of what we used to do is that any one of us, Henry and others that have been in the group, were in the group at the time, if you saw a project, you came in and you told our boss, which was Linda Dobson. And so if it looked good, then we would look at it. So unbeknownst to me or to Adam, when he's looking at it, doing all the things he's trying to do, I used to ride my bike downtown to go to work, right past this area, and I'd think, oh, there's a perfect place for a rain garden. So I would tell my boss, she'd go, oh yeah, we're working on, we've got this, that, and the other. Anyway, it sort of got into the conversation. So it was happening at two times, but Adam, he's the one that made it happen. But it was a lot of fun when I heard that this was coming up. But can you imagine working for an organization where you just come in and you go, hey, there's a project here? It was just a great place to work.
So I think that's kind of how it came to be. I think maybe an EPA grant came in to kind of help bridge the cost, but I happened to be an engineer, and so it wasn't just I kind of knew what I was doing when I was looking at the site as far as, this is actually a really good site because of its topography. I think it drains in probably an acre and a half if you don't include actually the run-by that happens down Sandy or the runoff that kind of came out of this parking lot. So there's probably about 2.5 acres that drained into this project. So a pretty significant facility in size. So anyways, I guess working with Henry, I kind of tell myself that he kind of gave us the keys to the castle. We kind of just it was just a different process as far as working within the city to implement these things. And we have all sorts of stories. I guess we can maybe talk about the street trees as an element. If trees are within the stormwater facility, BES can manage them as long as they don't need a ladder, is what we heard. But PBOT doesn't want street trees, and so, but because we had grant money for the community, that was kind of we kind of earmarked money to help them maintain these ponderosa pines that we put in the median. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm completely outside. I just saw all these bicyclists. But if I may ask a question, when you say the community wanted it, what do you mean?
Well, the community wanted it. It was basically me that wrote a community grant. I live 5 blocks away, and the community supported the project I presented to them. The local businesses supported the project, and the money was basically for communities doing some sort of improvement and stormwater project within the area, a quarter mile of where the big pipe was. So.
I never noticed this before, and I bicycle by here frequently, so now I'm glad
I'm glad you saw it. So the median trees are kind of a big deal, or at least people thought, I just wanted these grand trees. So we have these ponderosa pines, I guess Willamette Valley pines, and my understanding is they actually do well in this kind of arid, hot environment. So, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, we actually put some holiday lights in, but they're getting too tall to do that now. So yeah, a question.
Question about the pines. Did PBOT have concerns about sight lines and things like that? And then two, is there anything special underground to make sure they have room for their roots?
So I don't know about the sightline issues on that. I mean, the idea is that these trees are hopefully a large form tree that over time they'll grow and you can actually limb beneath the canopy. So that wasn't specifically brought up as a concern. We were just amazed that they approved. There's actually the urban forester that actually approved the tree. There's an 8-foot by 10-foot pad where the trees are planted. So, consulting our landscape architect, we felt like that was a large enough tree well to support what was going on. There was discussion of using pervious paving instead of the paving that's there, but we felt like we had a large enough space to do that. But speaking of trees, these sidewalk trees, if you notice stamped on the concrete in front of some of them, you might see an RZ. That RZ represents root zone, and this is the first time I think the city put them in, but there's a product called a Silvacell, which is basically an egg crate or milk crate type thing where it's basically an engineered soil that the concept is that it'll allow the roots to kind of grow through the media and grow underneath the sidewalk to get to the planter. And so not everyone has one. I guess folks at BES, who's always should know that only a certain amount of these trees have the Silvacells. So the idea is that the city could then go back and assess in 50 years how the Silvacell applied. So yeah, we did put special treatment, per that discussion we had at the last site. The other thing that we're really mindful for was up on Sandy, on northern Sandy. We're in southeast Sandy, but on northeast Sandy, there's a bunch of stormwater facilities, maybe in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that were there, and they're really deep facilities because they're collecting water from the other side of the street, and people really didn't like them, or the feedback is they're just kind of too deep. And so we were really mindful of that, and one of the things we did to mitigate for that is we have a valley gutter that's collecting water from the other side of the street and bringing it here. The skateboarders actually really like this setup, as you can see from all the curb work. Kind of another unintended benefit of this project. But down there's another catch basin that's pretty much at the low spot of this corner, and there's also a water main that goes through here. And usually you put your water lines below those storm lines below the water line. But in this case, we convinced powers to be that we don't want to go deep. We can use a different material pipe. And so we actually have a pipe that's probably only 1.5 feet deep that enters the facility down at the bottom. The other interesting features are the steel, you probably noticed. The steel is kind of reflecting on, this used to be the industrial district, and across the river they're building ships, so we thought it was a cool motif to bring in. They also serve as a retaining wall, so it helps, and they're very narrow, so you're not losing a lot of real estate when you're putting these walls in. Let's see, the blocks, these are historic Belgian pavers, and these actually came out of the streets somewhere in Portland, not at this site, but these are actually on the National Registry of Historic Items, I guess, or historic places. There's a longer story about the whole blocks that love to tell you. It's Henry, you can share that story. It's maybe over beers, but it was definitely a source of anxiety, I think, a little bit for Henry, and bringing in these blocks. And so it was just kind of neat to we have these corners, and so plants, our thought was as these planters came to a point, they're not going to really do well, and they're harder to maintain. So we gave, I guess, maybe 8 feet. Is that what they got? So then we have these little motifs of Belgian pavers to kind of convey the water through. There's also, if you're in the know, there is actually a geocache that was incorporated into the design. It's actually a retired geocache now because I haven't maintained it, but that's another series of fun stories of how that came to be as well. So some more Easter eggs that we could try to hide into the design. So I think those are the highlights. Nate Robinson from OTAC, he was one of the lead designers back with me when we were at V Hill Grimace, and Henry Stevens was the project manager who left the door open to the castle to kind of let us do all this cool stuff. What?
It looks like it was recently replanted. Can you tell that?
Yeah, so this was doing great, and then COVID happened, and seemed like the whole world turned upside down, and there was actually a woman living in here for a good part of time, for probably a year and a half, accumulating a lot of stuff. And pretty much, I think the whole site has been replanted from Zoe's crew. And they took out maybe 2 like 20-yard dumpsters worth of debris. So it was sad to go by it, but it was kind of like at that time where it was like everybody was suffering, and it was just, you know, what can we do? And so that's why you see the orange fence here. I guess one other thing is we really worked with PBOT to do things. There's no sidewalk on this side of the street, so that would have taken up valuable stormwater real estate. And so we convinced PBOT to kind of narrow the street. Our idea was to basically kind of cut the street off, just have it as bike only, but PBOT wasn't ready to take that jump. But there's a development going on here now that's actually going to go and move the street out and actually make this into a formal pedestrian plaza. So they're going to help us complete that. And I think the landscape designer or architect is down there from Knott Studio, or maybe showed up somewhere. There he is. I don't know if you have anything to say about this. There's a large, like a 12-story.
12-story building, all green roofs. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for letting me crash your party here.
Sure.
Yeah, this new development that's in permitting right now, it's a 12-story mixed-use building, and it's all green roofed, even up to the 12th story, which is really great. And one of the things we were able to do as part of that project was to convert the street into 2 8-foot bike lanes, and then expand the plaza or the sidewalk area out to create a pedestrian plaza with some overhead lighting and street trees along that side. So it's a really nice tie-in with the work that Adam and that team did. So
Thanks for finishing the job.
Yeah.
Couldn't quite get PBOT to get over the finish line with closing off the street. And then finally, I mentioned that this is phase 1. So phase 2 is actually in its process down at the intersection of Sandy and 7th and Washington, and we're working with the group DPAVE to look at kind of how we can almost, we saw that presentation today of a stormwater park, and that's kind of what it feels like that space wants to be. There's a lot of transportation issues going on there, and so we've been spending a lot of time kind of figuring that out. But we are doing this planning work through another grant from 1% for Green. And so next summer or fall, hopefully we're going to actually de-pave a portion of 7th Avenue that's overly wide to just kind of take out this excess pavement. But if you go to the DPAVE website, I think I have the link. They have a whole storyline of some of the activation we've done at that site. So I encourage you to check it out, because you can kind of help be part of the next phase of Southeast Sandy revitalization.
I just want to say before I forget, so I did find out that the phone number that we got off of that tag is the right number. So it's 823-1700. So if you ever see one of these plugged or some kind of issue, you can call that number and they will put it on the list, and they will respond when they can.
This one says 823-1424.
So I just got it from the person at the end of 1700, and she said, yes, this is the number you call. So that one, could you cross that out? Or I'll try calling that one too and see what happens. But anyway, 1700 works, so.
Any other comments from the team, or did I miss anything, Henry?
Did you talk about the valley gutter? I didn't hear all of your presentation.
Yes.
You did, but I hope it doesn't get obliterated with the new project, because it was so difficult to get that valley gutter put in, and for some reason we don't do valley gutters in Portland, whereas other parts of the country do use them widely, I think. And it was, as I remember, Adam, it took a lot of work to. We were out here that day when they were matching the asphalt to the concrete, and lo and behold, it wasn't that simple, right? It was, matching grades, and but totally worth it. It's just an odd thing to me that for some reason in Portland, Oregon, we don't use valley gutters to move water around.
Well, so a couple things on that. Nate and I actually, so the reason, one of the challenges we have with the valley gutter was Peabot, and the bicycle coordinator, Roger Geller, said, you can do it, but I don't want to feel it when I'm riding over my bike over this. So we were in there, we had like blue tape on the wall, like looking at the different grade breaks and how it would work. And Roger gave it approval once it's been completed. He doesn't notice the bump riding his bike down this. But you know, one of the things that could use improvement, maybe when Jonathan's team is that he probably should have put more kind of a grade differential right at the gutter. There's a lot of run by during high flows that will actually continue to run by. Fortunately, there's another catch basin that will catch it, but just something to pass along to your team, kind of accentuating that entrance to kind of really kind of help water stay in the valley gutters is something to consider. So is that lesson learned. Pass along, excellent. That's why we're doing this. It's all exchange of information.
That's a wrap. We got to get going.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go on to our last stop, which is the 5 MLK building, and it's at the corner of Burnside and MLK.